to design Kim Possible. And that's where I was doing that for a couple of years. Skipped over to Nickelodeon, designed Danny Phantom, worked on that show. I was there for about 4 years. And then back and forth, I went to Sony Feature for a bit. Okay, went to Fox Anime. I was all over the place, but now I've just been, for the last 11 years, I've been strictly at home in my studio here, just working freelance. And the majority of my time is really just spent between teaching, doing workshops, and freelance work. And that's what I'm just kind of doing. That's what I'm doing now.
Interesting. Yeah, and you have quite the art collection behind you.
Yes, yes, yeah. A lot of Mad Magazine stuff from the original guys, you know, the best of the best. There was Mort Drucker and Jack Davis. Those guys were my heroes. So because I didn't have the schooling or formal training, and as I was 18 years old, I started doing caricatures in theme parks. And that's where my background was. So Mad Magazine was the go-to. It's like, wow, look how amazing, you know, Mort Drucker is, Jack Davis, these guys. And then you discover these other artists that aren't in Mad, but like Al Hirschfeld. And then, so caricatures was my life. That's what I thought I was going to be doing my whole life, was caricature. I was setting up operations during the Christmas season. I would do caricatures for just people for 2 months, November, December. And I was applying for magazine caricature illustration. That was my path. And I realized, again, what the fascinating thing is in life is you don't have to be so strict and follow that, and you really shouldn't. You know, I think the more organic you are in your journey, and just, you know, the real thing is just develop your skill. And so that's what really happened. And for me, developing my skill was looking at these guys back here and learning from them. So they became huge mentors to me. And so that's why I've run out of space. I don't even collect original artwork anymore, because I got and I don't want to shove it in drawers. I got friends who buy it all the time and they shove it in drawers. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want it kind of out and about.
Yeah, that's got to be really inspiring. So not only did that inspire you at a younger age, but now you get to go into a room and see it all the time and be reminded of where you started in a way.
Exactly. And, you know, and dream that, hope someday, you know, people are going to have my artwork hanging on their walls too, you know, they can look at it.
I'm pretty sure they do. They also have your books.
And the books. Yeah. And that's what it is. It's, I think it's like, you have this, it's again, the dream. The dream is to be able to, and I think you can say this with every artist, and this is why we get into publishing and we create and we develop, is the dream is to be able to just have a life doing what you love to do, you know, make a living doing what you love to do. Like my life as an artist is doing this. Whether I'm publishing books, whether I'm working in animation, whatever it is you want to do, whether you're painting the side of a building, but that's what you love to do. And that's what's exciting. So for me, with my book publishing and everything else that I did and keep continuously doing, it's the pure love and joy of it, which is the true catalyst that just kind of keeps things going. And I think that's every artist's aspiration. And I think anyone who says that's not their aspiration is kind of fooling themselves. You know, even if you want to be a director, even if you want to make your own big picture and be in the movies, whatever you want to do, you want to do it for you, and you want to do it for the love of it. And I think that's the main thing, to keep that in mind.
That's yes, well said. Well, I want to just interrupt very quickly just to let people know, if you have questions for Stephen, you know, please leave them in the chat and I will ask Stephen your questions. But I do want to just mention, Stephen, we already have a couple of things that I'd like to just read to you here. So we got, hey, Stephen, lovely to see you doing a stream. Long time no see. Now, I don't know if you can see the chat, Stephen, but you might recognize these names. So I
can't see the chat. I'm afraid to, because I don't want that double feedback or anything like that. And I don't want to mess with anything. I'll go back. I'll look at it afterwards.
I learned my lesson there. Yes. So looks like Mike says, definitely have your book, Stephen, with a smiley face. So that's good. That books plural. That's fantastic.
There you go. Thank you.
Yes. Someday I'm one of those people who were inspired by you and your work all those years ago. So yeah, and you're already inspiring hundreds of thousands of people. That's got to feel good.
It does. It feels good. I mean, I love what I do. And it's crazy. You go through this journeys, and I love the word journey because that's what we're on sort of here. But as I've gone through the development as an artist, my initial phase was learn, soak in, take as much information, trace, copy, learn, grab wherever you can. And you do that the rest of your life, but it sort of slows down. It slows down to where you kind of stop necessarily. You'll always be looking at other artists and learning from them. But I think what happens is as you start to evolve, you start to look at real life more, and your true training ground becomes observation of reality, observation of real people. And this is where you're constantly gaining that knowledge. And then what happened for me through that, I started working in animation. I became a designer. That's what I'm doing. I became a teacher. And then I started to go, you know what, man? I love teaching. The teaching is filling a huge void for me that I felt was empty inside. Like I have all this knowledge inside and I'm doing it and I'm working on my own stuff. But the teaching and the sharing of it became so much more of a happy place and enlightenment place for me, where that's where I realized I discovered my purpose in life. And it was really about maybe 13, 14, maybe even 15 years ago. I realized, you know what? My purpose in life is to be a teacher. I know I'm effective, and it's like, and it's okay to say that. It's okay to have faith in yourself, because that's what propels you even further. If you keep having self-doubt, and again, as I work with students all the time, and the amount of self-doubt that is on quality people, quality artists. And so a lot of artists are bamboozling themselves. A lot of artists who have the talent don't believe they have the talent. And it's an okay thing to be like that. It's okay to be modest. It's okay to be humble. But I think it's destructive too if you don't truly believe in yourself. And I think part of that belief goes a long way to constantly help you grow. And yes, there's artists who aren't that developed yet. And I don't want to say you're not good, because good comes in time. It happens, and it's through how much effort are you putting in? And some people go, man, I'm not there yet. I'm not good enough yet. Well, how much time are you putting in? Well, I'm practicing about 5-6 hours a week. 5-6 hours a week? What? That's nothing. I bet you're on your phone 3 hours, 4 hours a day on social media, more time than you are practicing your own skill. And the advantage that I can say as the older generation has, and I'm not talking that we're old guys here, but the older generation, how long has the internet been around? 15 years, 12 years? I don't know exactly, but not that huge amount of time where we weren't so distracted. And so the generation previously was putting in so much time and effort of developing one's skill and not the distraction. Yeah, we compared ourselves to other artists, but we were looking at Mad Magazine, book illustrators, whatever, video games, whatever at that time, Dungeons and Dragons, Dragon's Lair, go, wow, look at this stuff. It's so cool. But we got into it. And now people are just like, well, I'm just going to play the game and I'm just going to do it. And so there's not as much effort, I think, spent on development anymore. And that's why I think it's something, we can all still do. We can all still nurture. We can all still develop. And I think that's vital.
Well, yeah, I can definitely see why you love to be a teacher. This is the easiest live stream I'll ever do, because I could just let you talk for 2 hours and you would fill it.
Oh, you break it up
with inspiring information. This is really fantastic. And something this makes me think, if you don't mind, I'd like to get straight into something with you that I think you are, another thing that you're known for. And actually the way that I originally discovered you was the fact that you have a very motivated, I don't want to use the word independent necessarily, but you kind of do what I commonly refer to as Jack Russelling, which is you kind of run toward a goal that basically you don't wait for permission to go and do things because you believe that you can do it. And it kind of related to what you're just saying. So I'd like to get into a little bit some of that with you. I know that your self-publishing seminar was something that I had watched and I took very diligent notes on. And I love the idea of an artist being able to be an entrepreneur and do their own thing and put something out there and just get started. And related to this is when just last night in the stream, I was talking to a Disney illustrator, and we both know people who are, probably in their 50s or maybe 60s who, want to do that project. But even at that age are still saying, well, I got to go back to figure drawing and get my skills up to speed. And I'm always thinking, well, why don't you just do it? Just get started with something and you can learn as you go. So I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I feel that too. I mean, I feel sometimes, again, what's your intention? It'll come, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? Is your intention just to create your own book for yourself, your own comic, your own graphic novel that you want to pass on to your family, or just because you gotta do something, your work has just become monotonous. You're doing what you do. That's what you do. That's how you make your living, but you love art. So that's when it's just do it. Just stop worrying about where it's gonna, end up again. But if your intention is, well, I really want to switch career paths and I want to get out of being an engineer and I want to be an artist now and I want to do children's books. Okay. So these are people that I meet all the time. And the reality is, yeah, number one is just do it. Number one is just, and yeah, do you feel you need to develop your skill in some area? Yeah, but also know that it's going to take a long time. You can't just go to a life drawing class for 6 months and be developed, right? So it's not going to happen that quickly. So the reality is just do it. Just like Nike said, it's a great slogan. And just do it and start working towards it. And then through that, you'll start to find more weaknesses. You might realize, my attitude, my hands are really bad right now. Maybe I need to spend an extra 20 minutes a day working on hands as I'm working on that, or my faces, whatever it may be. But I truly believe in stop sitting around and waiting, stop sitting around and waiting for permission. Stop sitting and waiting around for approval. And I think that has been one of my greatest strengths is it's naive and being naive too, in a ways, because like, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'll get rejected. It's like a lot of that saying is better to ask for forgiveness than permission, right?
Yes, I say that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what it comes down to is just do it and then see what the result's going to become of that. Because what people do, they keep putting all these restrictions on themselves as to why this is going to be impossible, why this is going to be so hard. And so now you've put up all these barriers. Of course you're going to be blocked. Where does the blockage come from? Your own blockage, your own self-destruction, as opposed to let me just do it. And my biggest thing that I've carried through me my whole life is, honestly, I've never been afraid of failure. Failure doesn't even exist to me. It's a word that's made up in school. Oh, you got an F. You're not doing so well in school. I just did an art talk recently about it, about the failure where in school, if you get an F in school, do you stop going to school? No, you start building up, you get a tutor, you start going to summer school, you start building up your study habits. You got your parents breathing down your neck saying you got to pick up your grades. But you don't stop going to school. You just know that you got to develop more and work a little bit harder. And that's what I think artists have to realize is just because you're not where you're at right now doesn't mean you're not going to be there a year from now, 2 years from now. It's like everything requires a sense of nurturing. And I think if you're willing to nurture it and act on it, that's the big thing. It's just sort of act on it. And I like to break things down into these 3 things in all honesty. It's almost like this kinetic energy where if you're familiar with kinetic energy, and the best way to explain it is it's just like, like someone who has an expensive watch, like a Rolex watch or something where you don't have to use a battery, right? It's just by movement makes something work, right? So by our own movement makes our body work, our own blood move, our muscles work. We have to move. If we don't, we're gonna become crippled, and our knees are gonna hurt. We're not doing enough exercise. You're not walking enough. And some of these old artists that I know, they always say, Stephen, while you're young, man, make sure you're walking, make sure you're bending your knees, because they all have knee trouble afterwards and back trouble. These old guys are in their 80s because they're not moving their body. So the kinetic energy works like this. Basically, just number one, know your intention. Know your story, know your narrative. What are you trying to do? I'm going to create a Kickstarter campaign. I'm going to create a book. I'm going to publish a book, whatever it may be. That's your story. That's what you're doing right now. It's not the story for the rest of your life. It's your story for now. And then the next thing you got to do is just take action. And as long as you're taking action, then don't worry about good action, bad action. taking action. You're doing something. And the third thing, which is the hard thing for people to do, is just, but it's the most important, is believe in timing. And that things aren't going to happen overnight. You don't plant an avocado tree and expect it to be fully grown the next day. An avocado tree, an apple tree, these things can take up to 7 years to bear the fruit of the tree. 7 years, 5 to 7 years, that's a long time, but that's nurturing it. That's an apple tree, an avocado tree, and saying, I want to be an avocado tree, and someday I want to produce avocados. So what do I need to do? I got to be in the right environment. I got to make sure that I'm living in a sunny environment. I can't be living in a cold environment. I know that I got to have someone watering me all the time, and someone who's willing to put in the effort and energy to water me all the time. And eventually I'm going to grow through those things. And that's what you do as an artist. You say, this is my objective. And I know, with you specifically, I'm doing a Kickstarter campaign. I'm going to create a specific book based on this video game. Okay, that's the plan. That's the intention. That's the idea. The next thing you do, you take action. You start putting it together. You're working on the page day after day, night after night. You're making this happen. And even with a Kickstarter campaign, is timing. It's a 30-day timing slot. So you're even relying on timing. That's not by, you can decide if you want it to be a 30-day or 60-day, but they recommend, don't do it that long. But again, it's timing and everything. So that's what I like to share with people wherever I can. Anyone out there who's listening to this, just put a plan into action. Take the action and truly believe in the timing, and it'll happen.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it can be frightening, I think, or I guess it's almost anxiety driving, where if you have a lot of desire to create something, you look and you see so much content coming out all the time, but what you don't see is all the years that led up to it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's what it is. It's a lot of, there's no pixie dust. And that's my biggest fear, that I am so adamant about when I do talks. I do talks all around the world and around the country. And when I go to these schools and I talk to these young artists, they're in college. They're not young. They're not kids. They're 18 and up. And I just tell them, listen, there's no pixie dust. There's nothing. It's not going to happen overnight. And there's no power. I wish there was. I'd be a multi-trillionaire if I could sell you this little powder that all you got to do is sprinkle it on your head and you're going to be an amazing artist overnight. It's not happening. It's like, your effort determines your outcome. How much effort are you putting in to what it is you want to be? And I honestly find there's a lot of people out there and a lot of art students and a lot of young artists who really say they want to be something, but they're not putting in the effort because the video games become more important. I had a recent student, and it was, I think he has potential, but 6 hours a day on video games. It's not happening. It's not happening. There's no career going to be happening. And there may be the few. Maybe there's the few people out there who are spending 7 hours a day playing video games and are successful artists and can balance that. I'm not saying, but I'm saying generally speaking, it's not happening.
Yeah, get to work, right?
Right, exactly.
Save the games for right before you go to bed if you want.
Exactly. Give it an hour, give it a 2 if you want. But that's where you do, that's where the reward comes in. It's like I'm working on me to make myself marketable. Because that's where you got to be honest about this too. This is where artists are afraid to talk about this, because sometimes art becomes this sensitive subject of, I'm doing art for me and I want something to say and, be expressive in this way. And that's fine. But also, I don't care. You still got to be marketable, because even if you're a painter and you're a fine art painter, how are you going to make a living? How are you going to put food on the table? You want to sell those paintings at galleries and street shows and street fairs. How? You got to have an audience that believes in you or sees something, and there's a message there, and it's doable. In the animation industry, in the gaming industry, it's all about talent. You're being hired based on your skill level. So if you don't have the skill level, well, that's going to make it hard for you to get into this game. On the fine art level, the self-publishing, everything else, you don't necessarily have to be a top draftsman. You can have many ideas and do things, but still, you're going to be tried upon your skill level. You get artists in shows like South Park, where very crude and all that, but the story, the genius is behind the content. So if you have great content, that's what's going to sell stuff. So if you don't have good content, good story, and you don't have good art, then you're kind of screwed. But if you have great content and bad art, that could work. But if you have bad content, so maybe the story's not great, but you have great art, that can appease people, because you don't have to be a writer in this industry. I don't have to be a storyteller. I could just be a great artist that's hired for my painting skill, for my cleanup skill, for my drawing skill. So I could be missing all those elements of a great writer, great content guy, but my ideas might be good and flushed out. So there's a lot of things to mess around with, but the reality is there's no pixie dust. If you want to get in the game, if you want to jump on in, build up that skill set, build up your knowledge.
Yeah. I like to say that, and you touched on this, but the way that I usually put it is, you need to have an objective that's stronger than the pain of production. You need to have a goal that you want badly enough, so that, because, when you start a production, as you have many times, what happens, you get excited in the beginning, as artists always do. We have crazy ideas, we jump in, we're excited, and then 1 week later we hit the first wall, and it hurts, and you say, okay, this is now, I'm pushing the weight now, and if your goal is not strong enough to see you through that struggle, you won't make it to the end of the project. So I would say you have to have a goal that's stronger than the pain.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, it's so true. I mean, again, anyone that's listening or anyone that knows has been on a production, there's a lot of pain and struggles that go on with the production. It's just the nature of the beast. It's not going to be easy. And if you're afraid to put in time and energy drawing now, if you get tired very quickly and you can't put in the time, maybe you realize, hey, the production world might not be the best for me, because you're going all the time. You're going to be dealing with indecisive directors all the time. People who are changing their mind every minute, and you're going to go, oh my God, every minute they're changing their mind. And you deal with executives who are changing their mind every minute. So you got to build a thick skin. And I think a part of that comes through the experience, on the production too.
I do tend to think that you could probably solve a vast majority of entry-level issues if people would categorize, kind of as you alluded to, which of at least two general categories they fall into. Do I want to do this for a living, or do I want to do it for fun?
Right.
Because it's going to totally change. Because if you're going to do it for a living, then your primary objective, and there are many ways to get here. It doesn't have to be this cut and dry, but I believe the primary objective is you have to make something people want. And that means that you have to figure out a way to love creating something that somebody else wants to buy. And you have to think about money, and you have to think about being a business.
Exactly.
That's just the way it is. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. You don't have to. You can make something for fun. Yeah. But if people can categorize that right away and get rid of all of that sort of funny artist, I can't talk about money sort of thing, just get that out of the way, you'll save yourself a lot of time and hassle.
Exactly, because then now you're getting just straight to the point. You're getting straight to the point, and you're being open and honest about it. You're not trying to sugarcoat it and trying to sound like you're trying to be something, I got to be sensitive. I don't want to say anything to offend people. So things like, hey man, I'm doing this because how freaking cool would it be to make a living as an artist? Mm-hmm. How cool is that? Wow, man, what do you do for a living? I get to freaking draw for a living. This is my life. No shit, man. I got to go into work, and I'm filing paperwork all day long, and I'm working in an accounting firm, and I'm doing this. All these other people, and I know in my circle of like all my friends with my wife and her friends and all the people, the neighbors, I don't know any other artists. No one I hang out with, and it's kind of sad to say in my living circle, is an artist, because I don't live near really any artists. So all my friends that I kind of hang out with, they're not in art. They're in different phases, but I hear the moaning and the groaning and the bitching and how lucky you are. You get to do what you love for a living. And it's just like, yeah. And I say I am lucky and I am fortunate, but didn't come from nothing. It came from a lot of hard work. And even when I look in your studio and I see all those hundreds of books behind you back there, and Salvador Dali and everyone else, but I know where you're at. I know where, it's the training ground. It's you. These were people that influenced you. Maybe you don't pick up their book every minute right now, but at a certain point in your life, they were influential, and you read through their books, so you look through their artwork, and they're always there as a guide. I think when you get frustrated, because people always ask me too, like, what do you do when you lose motivation, you lack, when it's not coming? Man, I go to my books, I go to my bookshelf, with all my hundreds of books of all my artists that I have that I've collected over the years and conventions. And I just flip through it and just go, that's cool, and I appreciate it. And even that little bit can spur an idea, but plus it's also great reference, because, for instance, just looking at like Salvador Dali, you may have to do something that's bizarre and weird on a background or a character and go, what did Salvador Dali do? How did he approach it? And what can I gain from that? So we never stop learning, never stop learning.
Yeah, and what an exciting time. This is the thing that really gets to me. Is we are so fortunate to be alive today doing this, because even, I don't even mean like in the 21st century, 20th century even, not even that. It's literally within the past 5 years. The fact that we're here and we can use, there's services like Kickstarter that exist. You could not self-publish a book really, like, to any successful degree in 1995.
Right.
You would, the fact that you can now amass a following online, that you can put something out there. It's hard, as I learned, with my independent project. And I've had as Stephen said, you kind of learn as you go, and you go down some different trajectories. But the point is, the fact that I can now go and have a product on Kickstarter like this and have people actually put their money behind it, and I can do that independently. I can work with the vendor myself. I can get the books produced just the way I want to. I don't have to argue over, I want hand sewn bindings, and I don't have somebody kicking back to me saying, oh, that costs too much money. I can make a decision. It's amazing that I can do that now. It's so fortunate.
Yeah. I think this is what's really great. Again, as we evolve, and who knows what's coming. All we know is what we have now. And when you have something as amazing as Kickstarter, where it wasn't possible. Like, you're right. You try to get a book published back in '95. You're going around and pitching your idea. And that's what happened to me when I did my first published book back in, I did my very first one 16 years ago. So back in 2002, I did this big hardcover book. I was going to all these publishers trying to, showing them what I want to do. No, not enough sexy women in the book. Not in this, no one's going to care. All your sketches, no one care, blah, blah. And rejection. And so there was no Kickstarter or anything at that time. And at that point, I'm just like, I'm going to start self-publishing. I'm going to start doing this. And I knew this guy, Michel Garnier, a great artist, illustrator. He was doing his own books. So I started researching how to self-publish. I bought probably about 12 books on self-publishing, how to do it, when Barnes & Noble and all these stores were just around on every corner. And then from there, I invested my own money, and I went to conventions, and I started selling my own book and doing it that way. And then now with Kickstarter, again, the great thing is like, you can go through the exact same process. Now, I had to find my own printer. You still have to do that when you're doing Kickstarter. You want to find the right printer. You want to go through all those things. But how easy is it? Now, again, I don't want to say easy, because it's not. Nothing's easy about it. It's like, but how accessible is it is more the right term. Like, I can access that today. I can access and try to drum up the support. But we're in control now. We don't have to rely on the shopping malls. And this is why we see all the retail stores closing. You don't rely on me having to go to the Disney store to buy a Disney product or something I want, or a T-shirt I want. I don't have to rely on the dictation of these people telling me what to do anymore. You get to decide. I'm going to develop my own product. I'm going to put it out there, see who's interested. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Let me see what I could do better next time, and just get it out there. And as you're doing your Kickstarter here too, I mean, this is what I love. And this is what, for me too, why I want to talk with you today about it is I love independence, and I love guys like yourself who are doing this independently, and you're, with your background, and you've started your Kickstarter campaign, and you got this going, and it's a beautiful book, and I can see everything you're doing, and the binding, everything that you're going to do, self-control. Let me do it my way. And there's a lot of freedoms in a lot of countries, and whether in Europe and everyone else, all these guys can do it. You could do it if you lived in Egypt. You could do it where you live there's a lot of countries you can't do things. But this is what I love about this country, what I love. we just do it. Just do it philosophy. Just start it. And I think so many of these other countries can take on this attitude. Yeah, you know what? I can just do it. I don't need to wait for Joe Schmo to tell me to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take initiative and get something started. I apologize. Let me just turn that off. And that's what I love about this. And again, what you're doing with your Kickstarter too. It's just like, hey man, just go for it, do it. And it's a beautiful thing.
Right. Well, thank you for saying that. And I appreciate it. And also thank you for the inspiration, because, a huge part of feeling like that can be done was watching your seminar about self-publishing. In fact, I think I had even reached out to some of the folks that you had been working with. This is how, I got to use the Steven Silver method. Talking about things like, just such creative ideas like approaching libraries and things like that. I remember came from you. And I thought, this is really clever. You actually can make this work. But a huge part of that also was not even about, while of course I do like to be independent, it was, and I agree with you that we may as well take advantage of the freedoms we're afforded. And we're very lucky to have them. And with regard to more that the other route is getting increasingly challenging in terms of making a living. I went and I had some publishers who were very friendly and took the time to talk to me. I had a couple of offers for publication for both my Dreamside concept, which is the original IP, as well as the new project Ukulele. And they were just very frank with me. And they said, with Dreamside, you're going to sell 500 books in your first year. And because we're going to go through a retail model through Amazon, we have to keep the cost low, and the margins are going to be very low. Right. And they said, frankly, you'll probably just make your advance. And for those who don't know, you typically get an advance payment with a publisher that's relative to your experience. And I thought, well, that's not going to be, I can't pay the bills on that. Right. I just can't. Right. And so I said, if I want to do this, I have to go back 70s style. Yeah. And take it, just do it, kind of old school, make something that's like a really amazing, high quality book. That's going to be an unusually high quality book with hand sewn spine. And, I'm doing embossing and foil stamping on the covers, really nice stuff. Take years to make it. In the case of this new book, it's 2.5 years that we'll spend on it by the time it's done. And, just make something really, really good. Just do it myself. And I figure I have like 1 or 2 shots to try this at most. Right. And if it doesn't work, I'm back in a studio job in the games industry. But you have to give it a go.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the point right there. It's like, you got to give it a go. Because you don't want that regret. Why? What's the point? It's like, wouldn't you rather try something and have it fail than just not do anything at all and just wonder what could have happened? And that's my whole philosophy, I think, on everything that I ever do. It's like, I'd rather never look back and go, I wish I tried to set up a t-shirt company one time, or I wish I tried to become a character designer in animation and I never did it, and all this, I wish, I want, none of that even is in my head anymore. It doesn't even exist, because I know every time you try something, you give it your best, you do your best. You don't give up after 1 or 2 days. You don't give up after just 2 weeks of doing something. You give it your best. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I tried. I was working with this amazing artist from Italy. Her name was Roberta Scalvini. And I was doing a workshop out there, and she showed me this amazing thing, hand-sewn thing. Again, I love entrepreneurship. This hand-sewn, like it was called a morbid zombie. This little creature, plush toy she was making. I'm like, man, that's brilliant. But she wasn't really selling them. And I thought, I think this would be huge in America. So I thought that would be great. So I invested and I worked with her and put in money and invested and tried to make it work and get off the ground, and contacted people to try to make it a bigger product and get it out there. I even set up my booth at Comic-Con one year with all her products and trying to get it out there. But it just didn't fly. It didn't work. And whatever reason, but I don't have any regrets that it didn't become something. I always wish that it did, because I would have loved to see it flourish for her and everything, but it didn't, and that's it. And it's like, but I'm never going to have a regret that I didn't try, because I gave it my best and I gave it my all, but it didn't work out.
Right. Yeah. It's very inspiring to see other people doing that, I think. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I have been horribly neglecting the chat, so I want to jump in here. And So we got a question for you. Aside from workshops and teaching, are you working in any animation production for a studio? I'd love to see your character designs in cartoons again.
Yeah, I am. I do a lot of development for people, and in development, for those who don't know, it's there's a lot of development that goes on in Hollywood, you know, in the entertainment industry, and a lot of stuff that goes nowhere for whatever reason. So I'm contacted all the time doing that. A current production that I am working on right now, though, is for Scooby-Doo. They're doing a new Scooby-Doo for Warner Brothers for the television side. And my role right now is, it's funny how caricature goes full circle. I'm responsible for designing all the caricatures of all the celebrities that are going to be in every single episode. The tricky thing about it is I got to get celebrity approval. So every drawing I do has to go to their agent and has to go to the celebrity to approve the drawing that I'm doing. So you get ones that are coming back. My forehead's too big. My nose is too long. All the things that I dealt with as a live caricature artist, you get from these celebrities. So I'm going into revision. I get these notes kicked back from me all the time where I could be working on, this is now my 9th variation of this one guy, you know. So you think, oh, you just whip it out and you can do it, but it takes a process. And then I have to also give them attitudes and expressions. And that gets tricky, but that's where my hero, and I'm glad that I studied Mort Drucker and Jack Davis, these guys from Mad Magazine, because that's what I'm having to do. I'm having to take these people and redraw them in multiple different angles with different expressions and maintain the likeness. And it's really hard. It's really hard, and it's really tricky, and it's really time consuming. But so that's going to be coming out next year sometime on the WB. But that's what I've been doing.
Amazing. That's exactly what it sounds like you were talking about before, with the trajectory of surprises. That when you were younger, imagine that you would say, oh, you know, I'm going to be working on celebrity caricatures that are going to have to be judged by them. And that's going to be a challenge I'm going to have at some point.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the point. That's the thing. The most beautiful thing, the thing that I've come to realize more than anything now, my new mantra in life is, it's a couple things. Number one is just let it happen. Because if you can let go, and part of that letting it happen is a word that I like to use. My wife doesn't like me using it because she thinks it doesn't have the same thing as acceptance, but it's like surrender. And it's not surrender like I give up, I'm just surrender, I just give up, but it's surrender to whatever moment and situation you're currently in, because you cannot control the day when you can finally come to the realization that you have no control of future outcomes, which we've never had. No one has ever had that ability in the history of mankind, in the history of nature. We have no control. The weather, there is no control. We can predict that there's going to be a storm coming, but we don't know the magnitude. Truly, we don't know the damage that it's going to do. So why humans, we project into the future, the doomsday, and this is going to happen, and this isn't going to work out, and all this madness going on in your head. You have no control of that. So when you can surrender and only rely on your past as memories, because that's all it is, this is it right now. And when you can just really let it happen, when you can truly get, and I'm not going to say it's easy, because it's not, but where it's happened for me is many, many years of not only reading hundreds of books on psychology, on reading books on looking at documentaries on the earth and the cosmos and everything else, but realizing the magnitude of everything, how things work, and philosophy. You realize what everyone's message is. Everyone's message is just let it happen. Just let it be. The Beatles said it, let it be. But we couldn't really hear that, let it be. And those guys were going through it as they were going and studying with the Maharishi and the Indian philosophy. But that's what it is. So this is what it comes down to. And I think if I could impart one powerful gift and sprinkle something or a pill that I could give everyone, just to say, take this and you won't have to stress anymore. That's the elimination of stress, is when you just kind of, this is it. This bad situation I'm in, I'm going to let it happen. And what can I do to work my way around this? You know, so, you know, this great thing that's happening, how can I appreciate that and just soak this in and let that happen, and just really just let things happen no matter where you're at. You eliminate it, and what you do, again, this is another hard thing, you become the thinker of your thinking. And it sounds weird, but when you start thinking about what you're thinking about, so all of a sudden you're thinking about, man, I don't know if I'm going to reach my goal on my Kickstarter, and I'm stressing out, and I'm just going through this. And you go, whoa, 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 mind, knock, knock, knock. That doesn't exist right now. I know that I'm taking action. I know that I'm doing stuff. I know that I'm not in control of that. I know that I'm not going to just sit and do nothing. I know that I'm going to keep sharing it on social media. I know that I'm going to talk about it, whatever the circumstance may be. That's what you have control over. All that other stuff, you don't. You don't know when you're going to get your next flat tire on your car. You just don't. It's going to happen when it happens. And when it happens, you let it happen. And what do? Call AAA if you got AAA. Otherwise, change your own tire, or call a friend who knows how to change a tire. Or maybe some nice Samaritan is going to pull off on the side of the street. There are so many outcomes and scenarios to every one situation. Why would you try to predict it?
Right.
So if there's, you know what I'm saying? So if you can, as an individual, just let go of that, that's when life gets like smooth sailing and things keep happening.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's kind of in response to that. Something that I had to really learn to do over time, and it's embarrassing to admit it, but this is the kind of stuff that you learn over time. Is when you're younger as an artist and you're ambitious, you have a lot of ideas that you want to do. The main thing in your head all the time is how can I just finish all this other stuff that I have to do, so I get back to doing what I really need to be doing, which is making this brilliant masterpiece. And the funny part about it is, in the process, you're offered these opportunities to make something that you didn't expect to be.
Yeah.
You had the opportunity to spill your sort of artistic talent into this region. And oftentimes when I was younger, I didn't respect those opportunities as much, because I thought, oh, this is not as grand as what I have in my head.
Right.
And so what I've grown to learn, and ukulele is actually the ultimate example of that. Where these are characters I didn't create. This is a world that's not my creation. It's a situation that appeared unexpectedly, where this game popped out of the blue, and it seemed like an opportunity. And I thought, now I can keep working on my own ideas, which I believe will work, but maybe not right now. Maybe this is an opportunity to do something different. And what I need to do is figure out how to make that, how to make that mine, in the sense that I can put that passion that I have for my own ideas into this this project that's actually is originated by other people. And so I wonder if you can speak to that a little bit, about how you're able to bring that sort of, I want to use the term the artistic arrogance that I think artists tend to have, because we want to create beauty, we want to create what we think is beautiful. How do you, no matter what project you're given, do it with a sense of gusto and passion, and make it as good as you would do with your own stuff? How do you keep that straight?
Yeah, I think the realization is, again, it comes down to the present moment, that every time I'm working on something, that's what I'm working on, right? So it's like, so some people will even, I just had a student today through my schoolism that his question was just about, if I take a job, how can I really be, is it the same as working and developing my skill? And absolutely it is, because every time you go to work on that drawing for that other client or that person, you're still developing, at that point. So I think every time do I go into jobs that are frustrating and deal with frustration on that job? Absolutely. But I just know that it's not forever. And I know that it's temporary, and I know that I'm going to, and that usually there's a challenge in it, some place, and that's what I'm doing right now. I always know that I'm going to eventually attain my goal. And the way I like to put it is in these terms. When I tell people, I say, listen, if I told you, you were going on, vacation somewhere, like you're going to plan a vacation, you kind of know what to do. If I say you've just won a trip, you're going on a free vacation, your next question is going to be like, okay, where am I going? Okay, you're going to go to the Eiffel Tower. Cool. All right. And then, but maybe you got to pay for it yourself or something. I don't know. But so what's the next thing? So you kind of know what next steps to take. Well, I got to research my ticket. I got to plan a date. So your goal might be to go to the Eiffel Tower in Paris. But what might happen in between? What might happen in between is the dates you wanted might not be available. The flight you wanted might get canceled. You might get there the next day. You might arrive in Paris and all of a sudden there the taxi cab guy gets lost and he gets a flat tire and diverts you onto some other street. And so many, all of a sudden you might get hungry and tell your Uber or a cab guy, hey, pull over at the McDonald's or something. There's so many side paths that are going to happen, but is that going to stop me from going to the Eiffel Tower? No, my still main goal is to get to the Eiffel Tower. So no matter what, even though I'm distracted and I get sidebarred, and you know what's funny as I talk about it, my biggest distraction in life was the animation industry, and in a good thing and not a bad thing. I wasn't supposed to be in the animation industry. My goal was to be a caricature artist and own caricature operations and do caricatures in magazines, and that was my goal. And I got distracted because as a fluke, as a side thing, I submitted my portfolio to Warner Brothers because of some guy that I met who said, keep in touch to me a year prior, who worked on Freakazoid, was a storyboard artist. I contacted him a year later and said, hey, and my parents had sent me an article about the animation industry back in '97. It was after Lion King and the animation boom. And I submitted, didn't think anything was going to happen of it. He said, come up and visit me. I showed him my work and he said, hey, let me take you upstairs. I'm going to show you. Oh, well, awesome. Took me upstairs. The director wasn't there, dropped my portfolio off with the producer. They just happened to have fired their character designer recently and they needed a new one. They had like 3 or others, but they needed another one. All of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. I took a test. I got the job offer. All of a sudden, I'm in the animation industry, moving to LA, completely derailed from what my goal was, from what I wanted to do. But did that stop me from doing caricatures? No. I kept doing caricatures. I kept doing caricature parties, and still full circle. I am always getting called all the time. I just got called recently by Warner Brothers to do some development on another project that's caricature heavy. So caricatures have made it full circle, but you're going to go through many distractions or sidetracks. The reality is, don't lose your focus. Don't lose your goal. If your goal is to achieve something, it's okay if it gets put on the back burner, but doesn't mean you disregard it. Just you're doing other stuff and let it be.
Yeah, and even I think one of the surprising things that can happen is you have the goal to go to the Ivory Tower. You get there, and then you realize that you're at the Ivory Tower, but the thing you really enjoyed was getting sidetracked through Paris.
Right. Exactly. Like all of a sudden you gain new experiences and all of a sudden, and that's the beautiful thing. So when you're open to all this, like all these random things that happen and realize, are these really random? And that meeting me that met that person, which led me to that person. So it's all connections. Like what I don't know that Steve Jobs coined it or anything, but it's all about connecting the dots, what he talks about. And that's what you're doing. It's just like a puzzle. It's like it's connecting the dots and those little puzzles that you would do and the maze and those little kids things we used to do. It's connecting the dots. We connect these things and it's how everything works. It's how our own body works when you get down to the mechanical aspect with just all the with our energy and just, it's everything's connected. It's just like our it's just connected. Everything to make up our arm, thousands of pieces have to come together and connect to make our arm to even function, so everything in life has to connect, and that's why that's the important aspect.
Yeah, the tricky thing is that you only get to see the dots that you've been at so far and one ahead of you, the options in front of you. So it's, if you right, don't know what the future's going to bring, but definitely learn to appreciate the situations you're being offered, because you can also turn and make the most out of those, or you can make a little thing out of them and bypass what life is giving you. Yeah. So let me continue with the comments here. Now, Mike says, David, I saw your work. I'm a huge fan of Shantae. I hope you take that further someday with Shantae comics. I would love to do a Shantae comic. Steven, I don't know if you know what Shantae is. I don't know how familiar you are with the video game world, but it's a popular indie video game series. And I did a test page. So a lot of what I've been doing has been reaching out to video game studios to adapt their games into graphic novels, which Ukulele is the first one. I kind of see it as a bit of a hole in the industry
Yeah.
because we don't really have an awful lot. I mean, I'm not in any way knocking what's out there. I'm just saying we don't have an awful lot. It's not proportionate to the quality and quantity of games that exist today. And again, this is another thing that was not possible just 15 years ago, because today's indie publishing scene really wasn't possible 15 years ago. You didn't have
Right.
Steam,
No,
you didn't
no.
have
Yeah.
digital distribution. And even if you did, you had like shareware games and nobody was paying for this stuff.
Right.
People had to call on the phone and say, all right, here's my credit card number, to some crazy
Right.
location. But today we can go on, anybody, like one person can make a game that can
Yeah.
download Unity, and if they're ambitious enough, in a year or two, they can have their own game made. That's how you get games like, what was that really popular? Undertale, which had one guy making this game. It was a huge success. It's amazing that you could do that. And so I figure, we have these great properties, and I love games.
Yeah.
So I love all these indie games. I just think that it's a nice sort of yin yang relationship where games have a different objective than storytelling in books. It's about gameplay, and so this
Right.
gives a chance to spend some time on an aspect of these characters and worlds that you don't get to experience when you play the game. So I thought that was a lot of fun.
Well, you said a couple things. Number two is important. Number one is love, and number two is ambition. And so loving what you do is very important. So that's what's going to be a huge drive. If you don't love it, why am I going to be driven to do it? But the ambition. And I think with what you've done, like you look at these things, these open holes and these ideas, and you go, you know what? No one's done a graphic novel based on this game. I'm going to try. And all of a sudden, because you have the ambition, what do? You get the idea, you plant the seed, and now you're nurturing it. And now you're taking action, and you're contacting these people, and you're reaching out to them, and you're making stuff happen. You're not sitting around waiting for any handouts. You're not waiting for someone else to do it for you. You have the ambition. And I think that's a huge factor in this, where maybe the question for a lot of people is, how do I become more ambitious? That's a tough question to answer. I mean, a lot of it can have to do with your surroundings, what you've been brought up in. Maybe you're brought up around parents who you didn't see any ambition, and they were lazy, and they were miserable at their jobs, and they hated everything. So that's what you saw. And maybe like for me, I was brought up with my parents, coming from England to America was an interesting situation, because again, I was coming as someone from the outside into this whole new world, which I knew nothing about. But my dad he was working for his dad in England at a factory, but then it wasn't making really that much money. And it was at nighttime, funnily enough, he didn't start Uber or anything else like that. It's funny because when we went to bed at night, there were 5 kids. He was picking up drunks at the bars and dropping them off home. He didn't start a business from it, but he was just driving just to make some extra money. When we came to America, so that was ambition. When we came to America, my mom became a real estate agent, and I saw her, how hard she worked, and we had to help her go door to door and give flyers and help get her name out. And I saw the ambition, and my dad was just selling rugs at a department store, and then eventually got into real estate with my mom and was helping her just do paperwork. But I saw ambitious people. And so I saw a drive, and I saw an independence. And I think ambition, it's not for not everyone can just have it. Everyone's got a different situation. Some people are ambitious because they come from such poverty and come from nothing. They say, I'm not going to live like this. I don't want to be poor. I freaking hate being poor. And you look at some of the greatest minds in the world, from Dale Carnegie and all these other guys. If any of you guys want to watch a great documentary about ambition, watch a documentary called it was on the History Channel, and it was called oh my God, How They Built America, or something. Oh my God, I don't know the actual name, but if you just type in like Andrew Carnegie and Dale Carnegie and all these other guys, it's called How America Was Built, or the building of America. But check it out. Again, that's where drive comes in. You go, these people are sick of their circumstance and they want to do something about it. You're no longer sitting there and become the complainer. You no longer sit there and just become the moaner and the bitcher and the warrior. You go, you know what? I'm going to pull up my bootstraps and I'm getting to work, and I'm going to make this happen for me. and you become the creator. And when you take that philosophy and that mindset, that's when you get shit done. If you don't, nothing's going to happen. If you want to play, you know, again, I love video games and I love the industry and I love everything, but I do not advocate 10 hours a day, 7 hours a day playing video games if your drive is to become a working illustrator in the video game industry. You know, it's like, I just don't.
Yeah. And yeah. So, I mean, I have a simple formula for it. It's to say, like I kind of alluded to earlier, if you have a why, as in why do this, that is just at least 1 degree higher than the pain.
Right.
And as long as you want it more than you care about the pain, you'll make it. And if you don't, you'll probably give up, because you just won't see the purpose for finishing. Right. It's what a lot of people usually, I think when they get started out, they don't realize is just how much pain there actually is during development. Yeah. And I think I am not I'm a really my art skill is really not as high as I think. Like I know that if I had a little bit more fluidity to how I'm working, I'd be able to produce things fast. I have to really, really buckle down and kind of redo things over and over again to get them the way I want them to be. And it really, you're constantly just sketching. And I'd say as much as 90% of it is frustration. Right. And then 10% of it is I'm on top of the world. You know, when you finish that piece and it's perfect. You're just jumping up and you're dancing around, asking everyone how their day is going. You know, it's just, you feel great. But that 90% is the procedural development process. And to see through that for years. But
also realize too, you know, I think it's important because we all go through that, and I feel it's very common because I go through the same thing. You go through this struggle, and then you have the triumph. You've made it to the top of the hill. But then all of a sudden you feel good about something you've worked on, and now it goes to the client, whoever that may be. And all of a sudden they don't show that same enthusiasm, or you don't even hear back from them, you know, in a positive light, or, you know, not that they're screwing you and you're not getting paid or anything, but all of a sudden you feel so proud of this and you send it, and all of a sudden, hey, thanks for that. We'll get back to you in a couple of days. You're like, what? That's it? Thanks for that. You know, you didn't get the pat on the back. So you got to get over that, because you're going to get that all the time too. Other people aren't going to praise you for your accomplishments all the time. We're not, and this is where that argument has been. It's reared its ugly head in the last few years, where kids, like, everyone gets an award and everyone gets a trophy for the game that you lost. Wait, you're a 9-year-old kid playing soccer and your team lost. You guys didn't win. Why should you get a trophy? How does it make the other team feel any special that they won and they were working harder? And it's just like, everyone's going to get a reward. It's like, no, not everyone has to get an award. You know, not everyone needs to be noticed. And I think, so we know that it does hurt. It hurts. But you get over that pain. And I think for me, I got over that pain very early in my life when I was 18 doing caricatures live, when I was sitting doing caricatures and you got people over your shoulder. They think you can't hear, and they're going, that looks nothing like him. I'm on it. That's horrible. That sucks. It's like, dude, I wouldn't even pay for that when you get up, and you're sitting there going, fuck, man, and they're going to finish it. And then they get up and they wouldn't even pay you sometimes, and they take it and go rip it up in front of your face. And, you know, so you get brutalized, and it's like, but that built a huge thick skin and gave me a rhino skin, you know, in the industry, to where, it still always hurts, but, you know, whatever, you know, you gotta get through it. You gotta toughen up. And, you know, we're sensitive. Artists are sensitive in general, but I'd say try not to be so sensitive, and try to build up that thick skin, and it's going to take you a lot further, because you are going to keep struggling. You are going to go through that 90% of just like pure, you know, madness, you know, on there trying to figure it out. And you are going to have those great achievements and those milestones, but a lot of the work you're going to do is going to be shit. And most of my stuff ends up in the round file, you know, over there. It's just like in the trash can. That's where it ends up. It's just like, it's just not working out, and that's okay.
Yeah. And on the idea of getting praise, that I guess we'll call it illegitimate praise, is the problem with it is that however bad you might feel about losing, however badly you might feel about having negative feedback, it pales in comparison to the awful nasty devil in your own head
Oh,
that will follow you later when you praised, and then you realize later on, I said, hey, why did everybody pat me on the back? Because I'm realizing that I'm not where I need to be. You need people kind of kick your butt a little bit, so that when you're you got to get that. It's very good for you.
Oh,
and
yeah. Oh, yeah.
just,
And that's, I stopped showing my artwork to my parents when I was 18 because they kept telling me how brilliant everything was, so stop showing, to people who are always going to tell you how brilliant it is.
Yeah. Or, in my case, it was show my mom and my dad have very different reactions. Show my mom and it's, oh, it's beautiful, honey. And if I show my dad, why did you make the hair so spiky? And that sort of thing. So it's almost like building up an immune system. If you've got to, when you're younger, you want to be exposed to illness so that later on you can power through it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, let's read a few more of these comments if you don't mind. So we got, I fell in love. This is for you, Stephen. I fell in love with Kim Possible when I was 12 years old. It was showing on TV in Vietnam with a Vietnamese voiceover.
No way.
They even renamed the characters. Only thanks to the internet that I found out about the person behind all those amazing character designs. And definitely that was one of the moments in my life that took a turn. Now I'm a professional 2D animator and character designer. I wouldn't have done it without having seen your work and being able to follow you in your journey online.
That gives me goosebumps. You can't see them, but I got goosebumps. That stuff is awesome, and I love hearing that. It never goes. People come up to me all the time at conventions. They go, I know you're probably tired of hearing this, but you influence and inspire, and it's like it never gets old. And because it's just like, it's so empowering and powerful. And these are another one of those things. When I designed that show, you don't think about in a million years that it's going to turn into something, because of all the other shows you've worked on or done that don't really become anything. And it's just like, and all those other thousands of brilliant character designers working on so many great shows that don't amount to anything. It's like, it was the right time and the right place. But I love it that especially when you hear this, like that was a driving force to someone's career, and now they're doing that. I mean, it's beautiful because that was with me when I looked at Mort Drucker from Mad Magazine. Wow, looking at his work, I want to be an artist like that one day, and I followed those footsteps, and it's a wonderful thing. Yeah, congratulations to you, the person from Vietnam, and it's so amazing. That's awesome.
So congrats, because from the duration of this live stream at the beginning, you said that you wanted that, and now you have it an hour later.
Right.
Yeah, so that's good timing. Speaking of timing, so Mike says, great art, bad content, i.e. Neighbors from Hell that lasted one season, or the Emoji Movie.
Right.
I haven't seen either project, so I can't comment on them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many flops out there, but the thing that I do love, I love the fact that people are even just trying and pitching and trying to make these things happen, because every time that happens, even though it's a flop, and it could be Rotten Tomatoes gives it a bad thing, whatever it is, think of all the jobs that were provided. Think about how many people were able to put food on their table during that year or 2 year, 3 year period, even though it was a horrible movie. I worked on a movie that got completely shafted, which was Norm of the North, which came out in the movies. And I didn't do all the designs on it, but I did a lot of the designs on it initially. But again, things change and things evolved as it gets built into CG, and I wasn't involved anymore. I just did initial concepts, and then it was out of my hands. It flopped in the movies, but again, it kept, for the studio, it gave people 3 years of work. It's just like, so I look at it as that. And so I don't like the rating things and all that. I go to movies sometimes and go, oh, that was horrible. Yeah, I'm not going to judge it like that, in the sense like these people are horrible people. I go, I didn't like the movie. But I am in my mind grateful that, hey, think about the fact that all those people that got work from it, So let's keep that, even if they're flops. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, and also, like you said about how getting a failing grade in school is it's a weird thing, because that was a step that had to take place to get to the next step. So it's not so much that it's weird to identify that as a failure so much as a growing moment.
Yeah.
Yes, we got a little conversation going back and forth about some of the production. And we have Let's see. Talking about a particular production that our Vietnamese friend worked on. Now, I do not want to butcher your name here, so that's why I'm calling you our Vietnamese friend. I'd rather do that than be embarrassed. So yeah. Somebody says Noah says hello from Israel.
Oh, hey Noah, how's it going? I know Noah.
Okay, all right. And we got a question from Jonathan. Oops, I'm late to the stream. Question for Stephen. Did you meet Butch Hartman when working on Danny Phantom? What was it like working with him?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I had to meet with Butch to get the job in the beginning. So I'll just tell you about that. But I had to work with Butch all the time. So Butch was in his office up there. And so every day for 4 years, I'd be with him for the most part when I had to show him work to get approval. But when I first met him I was at Disney at the time. And this is where connections happen. And a friend of mine said, hey, they're looking for a character designer for this new show they're doing called Danny Phantom. I told Butch about it. You should meet with him. They sort of like set up the a meeting. And I met with Butch. And Butch just kind of wanted to get personable, just meet. And we had a lot of things in common. He used to do caricatures too, live caricatures and all that. And we just kind of hit it off. So, it was great just in the beginning. And he just kind of told me it was important for him to meet with artists because he wants to make, he knows that he's got to be working with you. He wants to make sure, he told me, I just want to kind of make sure that you're not crazy. It's like I've worked with too many crazy people in my time. And, so it was important to him to meet with the artist that he was going to bring on because he knew he was going to be working with you all the time. But yeah, so that was my thing with Butch.
Now, Fat Ninja Baby says the documentary was called "The Men Who Built America."
Yes, thank you, Fat Ninja. Yes, that it was Fat Ninja, right?
Fat Ninja Baby,
okay.
Yes.
Fat Ninja Baby. The Men Who Built America. That was it. If you guys want to, again, this is where education. It's like, so when things get thrown out, this is the thing too. When books names are thrown out, when philosophers' names are thrown out, when movies are thrown out. Some people will sit there and go, oh, cool, right on, keep going. And other people will go, let me watch it. Let me see what this guy's talking about. And that's part of your ambition. It's like, I want to know what that guy has to say. And so you go and you watch that documentary at nighttime, or you put the video game away for a minute and you watch that, or you put your phone down for a minute, social media down for a minute and watch that, or you watch it while you're working on work. But it's fascinating. And I would encourage people, keep watching. Here's my advice. If you guys, any of you guys out there are struggling internally about how to overcome fears, overcome failures, overcome problems, or how to build something, how to make something work, just watch documentaries of people's successes in their lives, whether they were a newspaper mogul, whether a real estate mogul, whether that maybe they made Heinz ketchup, Heinz himself. Heinz himself, who made the Heinz ketchup, that guy was very religious and hated that tomato ketchup was being sold in bars. He would go to every bar while he was alive and take the ketchup because he didn't believe in alcohol and consumption of alcohol. And so you read that, wow, it's like crazy little things, but learn about Heinz. How did Heinz make Heinz ketchup? It's these fascinating things. How did Andrew Carnegie go from being a poor Scottish man, broke, living in Scotland with nothing, not even a pot to piss in, to the biggest billionaire that became? How, these are the stories you want to research and look at. But watch that documentary. You'll be blown away. And another great documentary to watch is, I'm going to butcher this name too, but The History of Mankind. When you look at the history of mankind and how we even made it to where we are today, with the madness that went in on this world, with the killings and the rape and the plagues, the bubonic plague and the black plague, and you go, everything is fine. We can do this. We can do this. We can make things work. We can do it, man. Look at everyone that died before us to try to make it work. And look at us now on a computer in our own house. It's just like, wow, look how far we've come from people having just to scavenge for food, make their own clothing. look at, these are the things that I want people to embrace, because when you go that deep and you go, you mean I can go to a grocery store and I don't even have to kill my own chicken? And I don't even have to package my own food. And I could go to a store. I don't even have to knit my own sweater. When you just think about that, that's when you go, everything's going to be just fine. And I'm just going to work on what I want to do and build my own intellectual properties. Because you know what? Everything's going to be just fine. I can publish my own book today. I don't even need a middleman anymore. You don't even need a middleman anymore. You know, sorry, I got so excited. I lost.
And I'm right there with you. My headphones will pop out of my head in a minute. But yeah, basically the that's also really, really strong motivation. I mean, I feel guilty every day because I think about it. I think, oh, there's all these people who suffered in the past. I say, well, think of all the suffering that led to today for us to have the luxury that we have, and to not take advantage of that and do something amazing. Because it's sort of like, imagine for a moment that you have a theater. Okay, and you have a huge audience that's waiting to see something, and all these people are just working behind the scenes. They're pulling the curtains. They're getting all the stuff, and they're all behind the scenes. No one's seeing what they do, and then they push you out onto the stage, and it's this perfect production. And you now have to honor everything that they did behind the scenes.
Right.
And if you don't take advantage of it, then it's like, what did they do all that for? What were they? Because there's the poor sap who is in 1820 who would live 33 years, and from birth till death just pulled potatoes out of the ground
every day,
and then froze to death, died of some horrible disease, and then thinking, well, that could have been us. No, we're here, with all these books and video games, and we have all the luxury in the world now. So it feels terrible to not. That's really the reason, I think, the push is we have to honor the past.
You almost have to. You're right. Yeah, absolutely. It's almost you have to, and get out of that mode of complaining about things too much, about how things are and things, or even how things were. It's like, how about now? How about now? What's stopping you right now from going on Google and researching whatever you want to figure out? We have the power to do anything. All you got to do is know the question. Know the question for what it is you want to know. How do you self-publish a book? How do I start a Kickstarter campaign? How do I get into be a character designer? How do I improve drawing hands? Whatever it is. My question was, a couple of weeks ago, I was at dinner with friends. How does a homing pigeon know how to go from one place to another? Ooh, let me grab my little Trekkie device here and Star Trek device and just ask the question. And all of a sudden, it tells me exactly how a pigeon knows to go from one place way here all the way to there, because I asked the question and I got the answer within seconds. In a documentary I was watching, they said before the train even came around, it took around 150 years for mankind, and even beyond that, to double in their knowledge. For mankind to all of a sudden go from knowing something today, for us to spread it around the world, get everyone on board, everyone to understand this. It was 150 years to get this. They say by the year 2020, it's only going to be about 72 hours from the time we do something to where we double our knowledge. And hey, we've just made this phone, but you know what? We can make it better now. Within 72 hours, we know how to make this even better from what we just did. And that's where it's going because of how fast things are improving. So robots and everything has taken over, technology has taken over. So it's up to us to embrace it. And there's a lot to learn. I don't know a lot about technology. All I know about is have an idea. That's what I can control. And I also know what I can control is getting stuff started. Do I know? And like you mentioned, your philosophy with the why, and it comes down to, you got to know. When you know the why, then you understand, you start to learn the how. Why I want to do something is for this specific reason, and then that knowledge of how will start to come. But you don't want to do it opposite. You don't want to figure out the how before you know the why, right? And a book that really impacted me with the why and the how, and again with names, it was this guy, Viktor Frankl, wrote a book, and I can't remember the name of the book, but this guy was a Holocaust survivor, was in, I think, 5 different concentration camps, including Auschwitz. I mean, the horrific of the 5, and he wrote a book. He became a philosopher, and he talked about how he made it through. And his whole philosophy was about the why and the how he made it through the Holocaust was he knew why he wanted to make it through. When most people that died, all they were focusing on was how to survive. What do I need to eat? I got to figure out how to eat, how to do this. But his why was so much stronger than the how that his mind kept him alive, because he knew he wanted to be there for his family, his wife, his children. All these things were the why. And so he made it through the pain of the starvation. He made it through the pain of the beatings. He made it through the pain of all this. And so the lesson from that is, for me, is know the why you want to do this. Why do I want to start a Kickstarter? Why do I want to self-publish a book? Why do I want to do this? And you can have many different reasons. Some of them are going to be financial. Some of them are going to be to build exposure. Some of them are going to be to get you other jobs in different areas. Some of you are going to be just to appease your family. Whatever it is, what is your why? And then you can start looking up, well, I want to do this. Good. Now I got to figure out how. And then you type in your questions. How do I do this, that, and that? And boom, boom, boom. The answers come. Your drive, your passion, your persistence is all part of your creation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one point I want to make before we take maybe just a couple more questions. I don't know how much time you have, Stephen, but we're coming up on about an hour and 20 minutes. So why don't we go back and forth a little bit more on just a couple of quick things, if that's all right?
Yep.
Basically, just in response to that, it's one thing that plagues us today that we never really dealt with in the past. Well, to a lesser degree in the past, is that we're bombarded with information that can affect your emotional state on a day-to-day basis. And artists are frankly pretty emotional people.
Yeah.
And so, oftentimes when I worked, so I used to work for the video game company Insomniac Games, and you'd have conversations with your coworkers all the time, and you'd talk about what's going on today. Oh, I just read this thing in the news, or I saw this, and it really got me down. And you start saying this question of, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right thing to be doing with my life? I'm making pictures all day. And what I used to think about is that there's only so much time that you have. You should spend it doing the best possible thing for you to do. And that sometimes means seeming a little bit ignorant of some of the things that are happening around you.
Right.
But sometimes you might have a really important thing that's happening in the world, and I'll be fairly cold to it, just because I'll say, okay, that's a concerning issue,
Right.
but my time is better spent today working on this thing that's going to drive my production forward, even if something next to me is crumbling away horribly.
Yeah.
And of course, to a degree, right?
Yeah.
But the point is, I can spend the day worrying about that thing and saying, "Oh, the world's falling apart,"
Right.
or I can stay in a positive attitude, have a cup of coffee, and get my work done. And I'll say, look, at the end of my life, I can say, oh, I was a worrier in my life, or I was a producer in my life. Right. And there's only so much you can't fix the world. Nope. So this is just something that hearing what you said made me think about that.
Yeah, no, and I think it's the point. You also got to remember, look what was happening during World War II. Entertainment was a huge factor which kept people going. You don't stop entertaining people. They didn't stop making movies. They didn't stop making cartoons. They were making more cartoons, for the war bonds and everything, as Disney was involved. You're a part of the healing process. So in reality, it's our job to keep creating and keep being the creators of this world and making stuff for people to consume and for people to buy and for people to enjoy, whether it be music, whether it be art. That's our responsibility. So if you want to give back, your time is probably spent more served doing something like that, creating, as opposed to going out and just like, the world's going to end and everything's going on. So, and possibly even making more of a negative aspect out of everything. Again, you can't change the world. And to me, it's like, do what you can do. And in all honesty, I'm not going to get into anything political or news or anything like that, but I will tell you what has been an honest thing for me, a great thing for me, is knowing, to me, everyone's corrupt. everyone in all these countries, left side, right side, blue, red, they're all got their motives. They all got their intentions. You don't know the truth. So here everyone's getting upset about this. It's like, how do you know that's true? How do you know that's true? You know, so why are you spending all your energy focusing on things that you can't even change, that you can't do anything about? And if there is, do something about it. My biggest complaint is people who bitch and moan and complain and yeah, all this stuff going on, yet they do nothing about it. Well, go do something. No, I'm just going to be the complainer. So why don't you spend your time just working on what you need to do, because you can change? That's the stuff that sort of irritates me more than anything. But something that I did personally, I stopped watching the news about 5 months ago now, 6 months ago, because it did nothing. It did nothing other and nothing. And you know what? In 6 months, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. It's the same, even to, you know, nothing's changed. It's all the same stuff over and over again. So you get to decide again, because you're the creator. Do you want to bring in all this sort of negativity again on every side, on all different sides? You want to keep doing that? I'd rather not. I'd rather be in a happy place. I'd rather focus on that and take action. So to me, it's like, if you can take action and complain about it, and you're complaining about it, take action, do it. If you're complaining about it, but you're doing absolutely nothing but complaining and writing negative stuff on social media, you're hopeless. You're doing nothing to contribute. What you're doing is creating, you're doing nothing for yourself. So my point is, do things for yourself. Where can you make change? Make change.
Mm-hmm. And even if you can, even in that situation, if there's something that you can do, maybe the thing that's best for you to do is continue working on your projects, because
Absolutely.
that's at the end of the day, maybe you could have done something. Maybe I'd say, well, I'm working on a project, I have a deadline, but you know what I want to do? I want to take a week and I want to go out and deal with this issue that's bothering me. But it's going to take a week out of your project, and at the end of a few years from now, will you look back and say, oh, I wish I had spent that week on the project?
That's what it becomes. That's what people will end up doing. There was a great story a guy told me once. He said, this was relating from another story, but he said this guy came up to him and he said, I want to open up a bed and breakfast, but I'm 70 years old, but it's going to take about 5 to 7 years to really get it going. And by that time, I'll be 77 years old. I'm wondering, why should I bother? Should I do it?
I want to retire.
The guy said, well, how old are you going to be 7 years from now if you don't do it, right? You're still going to be 77 years old, but now you're going to look back and go, damn it, why didn't I start it 7 years ago? And that's the thing where most people are going to go through that process. Why didn't I start it 2 years ago? Why didn't I start it last year when I had free time, when I was laid off during that time, during my layoff? Instead of complaining about my layoff, focus on your layoff. You know, you got to earn money, focus on trying to get a new job. But what's to stop you from working on your own project during that time, which could potentially get you a job, which I've heard of from a few different people where they got laid off and they were working on their own development project. And that's the thing that ended up getting them the job in the next place. So these are the things you want to do is don't put things off. If you really, truly want to do something and you believe in it right now, work on it right now, and it may change. You may start developing something and you give it the old college try and you've worked on it for 6 months or a year and you're like, I'm done with it. I'm not really excited about it anymore. Well, maybe you're not supposed to do that. And that's another thing that I truly believe. I think sometimes we spend a lot of time working on something, feeling it's the right thing, only to find out a year later, 2 years later, it's gone nowhere because you were never supposed to be doing it in the first place. You were supposed to be really doing something else that you didn't really think about. And that's happened to me so many times. And what I realize more than anything now, because I try to develop projects all the time, and I even come up with inventions all the time that I think that I'm going to do something with, but I know I'm not going to pour my heart into it. So if I'm not going to pour my heart into getting a patent and doing everything else and getting it on the market and going on Shark Tank, I'm not going to do it. And that's the sort of thing where you got to realize that. And what I've realized more than anything now for myself is every time I get distracted working on new projects and I meet these walls and I face those walls, the one thing that keeps opening its doors to me over and over and over again is teaching. Whether me teaching around the world, whether me lecturing, all those opportunities keep coming my way with very little effort. So that's when I know, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. That's my purpose, because that's the stuff that's coming naturally and easily and without as much effort and energy. Yeah, things are going to be hard, again, when you're working on projects, but sometimes I think when you're doing things long enough, you realize what your true purpose in life is. And hopefully most people will attain that and get there.
Yeah, and if you don't start it this year, then the only difference between this year and next year is that next year you'll be a year ahead if you started this year.
Exactly, that's the point. You're going to be a year ahead, guys. If you start right now, when this talk is over, you're going to be a year ahead next October 26th.
That's
and
right.
I guarantee you, I can almost assure you, whatever's going on out there in the world, it's still going to be going on out in the world, and the sun is still going to rise, and we're still going to have storms, and we're still going to have hurricanes, and we're still going to have rain, and we're still going to have poverty, and we're still going to have rich people, and we're going to still have politicians, and we're still going to have it all. So just work on your stuff and be the creator.
Yeah, you know? and when the sun comes out, if you did your project, the sun will come out and you'll have your book done.
And it's going to be a happy, glorious day, you know, when that, you know, exactly.
Let me just get the rest of these questions in, if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely.
I think we can probably wrap up after that.
Okay, yeah, let's take care of their questions.
Okay, so last question for David. As ukulele is parallel to Banjo-Kazooie, why not give them a shot? I believe there's more of an audience for Banjo-Kazooie. I think it continues, not to put pressure on you busting out more drawings, but just curious why you went for ukulele, not Banjo-Kazooie. Unless you were the character designer for the game, then never mind. No, I was not the character designer. That was Steve Males, who's also the character designer of a lot of classic Rare games like Donkey Kong Country and Banjo-Kazooie as well.
Oh, really?
So Steven, so ukulele is a spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie, which was a popular adventure video game from the 90s that was on Nintendo, and is now part of Microsoft. And but it was one of my childhood favorites. And so the team that made Banjo-Kazooie got back together, formed an independent company, and made what, spiritual successor of sorts called Ukulele, which is, obviously a play on the name. And so that's the project I'm working on. So what he's asking is why I didn't approach the team making Banjo-Kazooie. And this is something I'm sure you can understand entirely, is that to approach Banjo-Kazooie, which I would love to work on Banjo-Kazooie. Let me be clear on that. But to make that happen, it would mean having to work with a large company. I have to work with Microsoft. I have to work with Rare, which would be, honestly, both would be an honor. But there would be so much control and so much. Working with ukulele, and this is just talking about the logistics of it, not even about the passion of it.
It's important, yeah.
But with a smaller team, it means that it didn't matter to me what ukulele was when I first heard about it. What mattered was the people working on it, and the fact that it was a small team of ambitious people that I knew, and the reason they were doing it to begin with was raw, unadulterated passion.
Awesome.
And I knew that would be incredible no matter what it was, and that everything they do in the future from this point will be great. This is a really special moment. I thought I wanted to be part of that. So ukulele meant being able to have them. I can have a Skype window open with them and just say, here's a new page that I did, and they'll be like, great, and just kind of let me do my thing, and I can do it my way. And even though Banjo-Kazooie is obviously a more well-known property, I'm not sure that in the end it would actually be an overall more successful project for me to take on, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, that makes sense to me for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Question for Steven and anyone who'd know this. I'd like to expand my job search to other countries. How do artists, at least Americans, get hired to an animation studio in another country? I know getting your work visa. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is going to be the exposure for yourself to where you are physically going out to these other countries and meeting people at the conventions, at the different shows. I mean, there is a convention for everything everywhere. And maybe you have sort of a specialty that you can focus on, but that's one thing that I would mention is meeting that. There's another, research sites. There's a site, I think it's awn.com or .org, the Animation World Network, and they post all the listings of all these different studios from all over the world that people hiring. So you get onto that, and then it's going to be the content of your work, because if you're coming from another country and you come to America and say you go to Comic-Con, you go to a good convention, not CTN, it's a great people there, but it's not a good convention. But you go to, with all these other conventions and you meet some talented artists, this is where you build up, the exposure. Like I get artist work all the time myself, not only from past students of mine and current students, but also people that I meet all the time at conventions. And they go, holy moly, your stuff is freaking awesome. You got a card, and they got their card, they got their website. And next time a job comes around that I'm able to do, or I'm even going to hire you for whatever other reason, and put you in contact, whatever it may be, that's where you start to build up those connections with the other jobs.
Right. Excellent. All right. And so Fat Ninja Baby, who seems to be our title finder, said, was the book called Man's Search for Meaning by Victor E. Frankl?
Yes, it was. Man's Search for Meaning. Thank you, Fat Baby Ninja. Coming through.
That's right. Yes, very, very good.
Awesome.
TD Tom Art says, hi from Austria, Stephen. I really admire your work and you as a person.
Thank you.
Love your art talks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for being here today and listening. I hope you got a lot out of today too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this has been a great talk. And then Fat Ninja Baby says, also, Mike, there is she's talking to Mike. There is an artist animator named LaShawn Thomas who did a TED Talk over his story on how he got an animation job in China, moving there, etc. Neat. Yeah. Stephen, are you planning a workshop or something in Vienna? That would be a neat trip.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yes, that will be happening. My next trip that I'm doing that I know of right now that's in the works is I'm going to be going to Portugal, and I'm going to be going to Spain, and also possibly New Zealand, Australia, but Vienna is absolutely on the list. So there's many places I want to come out to. So I will for sure be there. Thank you. And anyone who's interested, just so you know, if you're mentioning, you guys can always just shoot me. If you go to my shoot me, maybe on here we could just put like my website or something, just silvertoons.com, and just contact me. Go to contacts and just send me a message, because I'm anyone from another country, because what I'm doing right now is I'm putting everyone's emails that I get from people if I'm coming out to their country and organizing it so that I can let you know that I'm coming to your country. I'll announce it, but that way you'll get priority and first. So you can certainly email me and said, just put a subject line, hey, come to Vienna, and I'll throw it in my Vienna folder and go from there. But thank
wonderful,
you.
Wonderful. Yes, and he does mention he was a student from you last year and at Schoolism, which was awesome.
Great.
Yes. Okay. Well, I think we're coming to the end now. Stephen, do you want to mention where? I mean, I guess you just did. Where people can find you. Is there any other way? Anything that you would like to let people know that you're working on, that they can find you in any other capacity?
Yeah, I think just if you just my silvertoons.com, but I have my art talks that I do on Monday mornings, which is on YouTube/Silvertoons. But yeah, if you go to my website, I'm going to start. I haven't updated my current events that I'm going to be doing for workshops and everything, but I'm going to be updating that shortly. So you could just go again to silvertoons.com. And that's what I would say. And yeah, I'd also just kind of want to say, just in closing here, and a reason just coming on and talking with you, David, too, was, again, I love this, but people coming in late, just the entrepreneurial aspect that you have, and your drive and your initiative, and people reaching out. When people want things to happen, you reach out. And David reached out to me, and he introduced me to his Kickstarter. And by the way, I would highly recommend check out David's Kickstarter. It's really beautiful, man. Just what you've done in your book. And I was so, and I get a lot of people requesting me to do, and I don't share Kickstarters all the time because I don't want it to turn into that. It doesn't become as special anymore. So it's when these special ones, and I thought this was really awesome. So, and I want to thank you for having me on here today and doing this. And I think we had some great conversation, and I'm hoping that it reached a lot of people and was meaningful to people. That's going to maybe inspire them to start their own thing today, and don't neglect it and make things happen. You're doing a Kickstarter. I've done a Kickstarter. It's a lot of hard work. We know what's involved in it, and wait till your shipping time comes.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah. We're doing something kind of crazy, which would be fun to share with you at some point. We're dual
okay.
warehousing in 2 different countries. One is England.
Oh,
So
wow.
that way we're able to get discount. Well, not discount,
Good
but
for you. Yeah.
cheaper shipping. And
Oh, that's great.
yeah, that took a little bit of work to set up, but it's a neat
Wow,
process.
yeah. I wish I knew about something like that when I did mine, because had a lot of people. Shipping to Europe was so expensive, and still is today for me. Like, to ship my books to Europe it's like $60, and it's like, so I don't even advertise it, because I don't want anyone to pay $60 for shipping.
Well, that's it. And I mean, my UK shipping is $10.
Oh my God, that's great.
We got this hardcover book, and it's just because the Royal Mail is so fantastic.
Wow.
The shipping rate, the most expensive Royal Mail is, I think, $20 for worldwide for the weight of our book.
Wow.
So I figure, look, it's worth the $5 to get the thing over there. And the most I'm charging worldwide is $25.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Again, it's the initiative. You put in all the planning, and that's it. So, again, my hope today with this is spreading the word. Again, just guys, get out there, be the creator, start your own projects, make your own Patreon, make your own Kickstarter, go to conventions. Even if you've never done one, just go get a free table at a convention, because they do that at times. Pay $100, experiment, see if people like what you do. And it's a good test, and then put yourself out there and make things happen.
Right. Okay. And I will put all the links to everything we talked about in the description, to be able to find that later if people watching later. So, so Stephen, thank you so much for taking the time today. This is a ton of fun. Yeah,
you bet. Thanks again for having me. This was awesome, and have a great time in your weather out there. It's getting cold out there in New York?
Well, we're definitely in the fall season, so it's
we're nice out there.
It's getting chilly, but we do have the leaves. It's a late color change this year, actually. So I'm really enjoying that. So thank you again for joining. And you want to say anything before we sign off?
I want to say, make it a great week, guys. Just keep going and have fun.
All right, fantastic. All right, thanks everyone for coming. See you next time.